So today, what do you get when you combine wine with mead? Pyment. Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica, and you're watching City Steading Brews. Today, we're making a Pyment. What is a Pyment? I'm glad you asked.
A pyment is a type of mead. Now, mead is honey wine, okay? That means any combination of honey and yeast with some sort of dilution. Usually it's water. That's a basic mead, or a traditional mead, or a show mead, depending on who you talk to. Then you have all these other things that you can put in there. I'm not going to go through the list because there's about 50 different kinds. Today, the one we're making is kind of like a cross between a wine and a mead. Now, if you've been watching, you know that we just did a wine versus mead competition. So it only makes sense to do a weed or a mine. They call it a pyment though because that sounds so much better. But anyway, to make this mead, what you're going to need is some grapes. We happen to have some right here. They came from our backyard. They were frozen as we picked them, and then I put them in a bowl and let them defrost. What that does is it breaks up the cell walls, gets some of the juices going. However, we're going to grind the bejesus out of these grapes.
With our food mill! Da, da, da.
I think, do we need to make a cartoon for the food mill now?
I don't know, I love the food mill.
We're also going to put in some other additions that you'll see in a little bit. First thing I want to do is make my yeast hydration. Now, I'm going to use D47 yeast. Somebody out there is going, he always uses D47 yeast. Well, no, I don't always use D47 yeast. Sometimes I don't use D47 yeast. But today I'm using it. You want to know why? I bought 10 packets at a time and I still have a few left. We are going to be getting 71B real soon. I actually meant to order it just before we started videoing.
So, we have
Half a packet.
5 different types of yeast available to us at this time, in this house, at this very moment.
You act like that's a lot. I know
But-
people that have way more.
Sure, but this particular yeast is going to reach tolerance that we are looking for this particular beverage.
I personally feel, and this is my opinion here, disclaimer, that mead is best somewhere between 10 and 15% alcohol. Okay? When you go too much higher than that, I think you're competing with the alcohol flavor. And if you go lower than that, well, it's kind of like cider or beerish. I don't know, not enough.
It's honey water.
12 to 14 is like the sweet spot, but 10 to 15, I'm pretty good with that. Notice what I did? The self-stirring cup. It's just a Magic Bullet replacement cup that actually has some ridges on the inside of it. I didn't put them there, they were already there. And when you do this, it stirs up the contents. It's wonderful. This way I don't have to use a separate spoon or anything like that. That's done.
All these neat things, as Brian was going to say, and I interrupted him because it's my turn to interrupt. Yay! Will be in the description below. Links for you, so that way you can find them yourself.
That is totally not what I was going to say. All that is hydrating the yeast. It's okay. Got to get the plugs in there too. You know, it's important. Anyway, so what I'm doing is hydrating the yeast. Some people do a starter and all this kind of stuff. Somebody just asked about this the other day in our VIP group. They said, well, what should I do? Should I do a starter? I've seen a lot of people do that. Here's the thing. If you make a starter and you do the whole thing with the little oscillating thing, it will make your colony grow faster. It'll get it ready to go so that when you put it into your brew, it starts things up almost immediately. It can help in some situations. If you're making a super high gravity brew, it might be a good idea. Yet another reason why I really don't like to go with super high gravity brews. They're risky and I don't think they taste as good. Anyway, so we have our yeast going. The next step is to turn these into juice and pulp. Sounds lovely, doesn't it?
Now, as you can tell, they're a bit off-colored already, and that happens naturally when you freeze them and then thaw them back out. So they were a dark purple, and now they're just kind of a
Ick.
gray,
We're just gonna go with ick.
green,
But you can see some of the juice coming out.
Yep.
It's actually red, but it's a blue bowl, so it makes it look kind of nasty-ish.
Yeah.
What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to use one of our 2-gallon buckets. Now, this is really a 1-gallon recipe. And you're probably thinking, why are you using a 2-gallon bucket? Because that's a lot of mass. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to put all these in as juice, but I'm using the largest holes, if you look here, using the largest holes on our food mill. That way the seeds and everything will actually go through, and I'm okay with that. Because normally I was just going to mash these up, and I thought, let's just try this with the food mill. I've never done it this way before. But I want to try it and see what happens, because I'm actually going to take all the skins and seeds and put them right back in. So that's why I'm using the 2-gallon bucket. By doing that, almost half of this is probably going to be skins and seeds and mash and pulp and all that, right? But when I rack it, I want to get 1 gallon of product out. So I'm going to make it more like a 1.5 to 1 3/4 batch and end up with 1 gallon of actual brewed product.
Now, we aren't 100% sure what kind of grapes we grow in our backyard. We're in Florida, so that limits the varieties that we can grow here. We were super excited to purchase this plant, but we paid absolutely no attention to what kind it was. So we know they're a seeded grape. We know that they're red. Other than that,
They actually taste really sweet. They taste like a Concord grape,
yeah. So
but they're not Concord grapes.
right. You can see probably that everything is drippy. That's because all of these things, except for the grapes, of course, have been sanitized in the red bucket of sanitization. I had to say it. I was so excited about the food mill that I didn't want turbos to feel left out. So.
All right, start getting some grapes in there. We are not going to bore you with all the details of this, but we'll just get it started and see how it goes. Oh, it's
going.
It's working beautifully. If anyone was curious, this is totally the way to do this. You could use like a blender if you really want to. I'm just afraid that you will actually damage the seeds. If you damage the seeds, you can create a bitter taste. That's why I'm using the really large hole, because the seeds are just popping right through. They're just going right through. So I'm not breaking them up or harming them. This doesn't really do that. All right. We'll see you when we finish this. All right, so here we go. We got a lot of grapes already in here, and literally just churn away. Every once in a while, go backwards. And you can hear the seeds. You can hear it running over them, but I don't believe it's breaking them up. And if you look in the bottom, let me see if I can show you this without making too much of a mess. Look at that juice. We got probably a little over a quart so far. We're like halfway done, maybe a little over halfway done. Someone's gonna ask how many pounds of grapes we used. I think this is about 10 to 12 pounds of grapes. Okay, so we're using about 12 pounds of grapes. We're gonna use about 3 pounds of honey. All right, so I have squozen all these grapes. And here's all that's left. This is the seeds and skins and all that. I'm going to literally scoop that right back in.
A bunch on the bottom, so we
Yep. I'm putting it all back in. Now you might be wondering, why am I putting all that back in if I got the juice out? Tannins. That is why. Because I like a nice mouthfeel to my wines, and that is a very easy way to get it. I also feel that they add that extra little bit of flavor. There's some nutrients in there for the yeast. I mean, anybody says, oh, you should put some yeast nutrient in there. This time, no, There's gonna be plenty here for the yeast to chow down on. And I don't just mean the sugars.
The prime nutrient that makes yeast happy is nitrogen. And there's plenty of nitrogen in the seeds and the skins of the grapes. So that's why we're putting that back in there.
All right, enough's enough. Now, if you look inside our bucket, we have sludge, basically. That's essentially what we have at this point. It's very difficult to take a reading on this because there's so much sediment in there and things like that. So what I'm probably going to do is fill it with some water, put in our honey, take a reading that way, and then we can add more honey as needed. I'm guessing this is going to be maybe a 1030 by the time I fill this to a gallon, which it's already almost a half a gallon now, so we're close. But a secret ingredient that I plan to put in this. Now, it doesn't need a lot of tannins, okay? But I'd like a little bit. I'd like a little bit of astringency. And what we have here is, these are grape leaves from our grapes, the same grapes. So these are the leaves of the grapevine. You can make a tea with these. We make tea out of grape leaves all the time. It's actually really good for your stomach. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to break some up, treat it like a dry hop. Think of it that way. So I'm just putting a little bit of these in there. I was thinking of making a tea and pouring it in separate, and then I thought, why? We're already going to have a mash. Let's do this a little different. And see how these are just dried out in our dehydrator. I'm just throwing a bunch of them in. What they will add is kind of an earthy, astringent, tannic flavor to it that I think will complement this rather than go the other way. Because I'm expecting this to come out pretty sweet. D47 goes to about 14%. I'm thinking this is going to end up higher than 14. Like, it's going to want to be about 17 or 18% with the amount of sugars I'm going to have, but it's going to stop at 14 to 15, so there's going to be a lot of sugar left. So by adding extra tannins, I can take back some of that sweetness and kind of create some really cool flavor balance there.
The tannins have a bitter sensation, so that will counter the sweetness and make it a more full-bodied flavor.
Yes. Okay, so I just put a little bit of water in here. We probably have a full gallon batch right now. I'm going to end up with more than a gallon by the time we're done. What I'm going to do is put this on my scale. This is a 50-pound scale, by the way. What that means is not that it weighs 50 pounds, otherwise I am very, very strong. It can weigh up to 50 pounds. We had another scale that was only good to like 6 pounds. And man, it was so limiting, you couldn't do anything with it. So first let me put this to pounds and ounces. I can put this entire thing right on here. Zero it out. By the way, scales for available in our store too. Just saying. Anyway, so I can have that on there. I can zero it out. Now I can add my 3 pounds of honey. No worries. Okay.
So today's honey of choice is Florida honey, raw and unfiltered.
Sweet squeeze.
Wildflower.
Yeah, this is wildflower honey.
So these are wildflowers native of Florida.
Why are we using this? A, I bought a lot of it. And B, it's a really good quality honey that doesn't have too much of any one flavor. When you're mixing it with so much other stuff, there's not much point in paying extra for super special honeys that are very subtle flavors because you're just going to hammer them anyway. There's just not a lot of point.
For most melomels, and a melomel is any mead that combines with a fruit juice.
Technically, a Pyment is a Melomel.
Yes. So this is a particular melomel, as Brian stated, that's a Pyment. So this is grape and honey. But any melomel, you're going to want to have a more neutral honey. Clover is the most neutral honey. Or a honey that has a flavor profile that will complement the fruit juice that you're using to go with it.
Such as wildflowers and grapes.
Yes.
All right, so we got our 3 pounds of honey measured out. Now I'm going to give this a stir. A pretty aggressive stir at that. So I want to mix all that honey together. I want to get all those juices in there. And I want to get my dried grape leaves going. This is thick. It's like soup. I don't know that it would taste very well. It'd be very sweet. Oh yeah, this has tons of stuff in it. This is like making mead like a Viking. I mean, this is like seriously goopy. You can look at this. Do you see it? By the way, we tried out the 2-camera thing again, and you know what, let me just level with you. Here's what happened. We were doing the 2-camera thing and sometimes 3 cameras, and we got all fancy and complicated. And well, I'm a fairly good computer for photo editing, and I found out that it wasn't real good for video editing. And the software I was using, we won't get into which one it was. It was supposedly a high-rated one, no, and I'm not going to trash anybody. It didn't work real well on my computer. It would crash, it was causing problems, and it just couldn't read everything. It was almost unusable. So I decided, all right, well, let's try different things, and try different things, and try different things, and finally, the 1 camera actually made the most sense to where my computer could handle it. I could edit things at a reasonable pace. I didn't say all the nasty words every single time, and life was generally better. But I've realized, you know, we want to be able to give you more. We always try to do different things. So we got different software now. It actually seems to work a lot better for what we're doing. And I tested it with dual camera angles from some of our older videos, and it seems to work really well. So I think we're okay with that. So this is kind of a test to see, you know, how it works out. But even as I mix this, you can see it's not really going looser. This is some thick stuff.
It doesn't look very attractive, but it
smells really good.
Wonderful.
All I'm really trying to do right now is just mix that honey in and get the tea broken up a bit, because there were clumps. They were kind of packed in there really good. Now to make actual tea with those grape leaves, it's just like making any other tea. Put them in a cup with some hot water, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, take them out, add whatever you like to season it up, sugar, honey, whatever you want, or just drink it. Looks like we got the honey pretty well gone. The next thing I'm going to do is take a reading on this, so we know about where it started, about where it's going to finish, hopefully.
Which should be interesting because Brian uses a turkey baster to get the liquid out with all that gunk in there.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you reminding me of that. I am going to pitch our yeast now because I don't want to throw off any reading that I'm going to take. So I'm just going to put this in. The liquid is not heated in any way. It's actually kind of cold because the grapes were in the fridge most of the time. So I'm going to put this in now and just mix it through. If you can see the level on the bucket, it's about there. That's well over a gallon. It's closer to the 2-gallon mark. And you know what? Just because I'm going to add a little bit more water because I know there's a lot of solids in this. So I'm going to end up with, I'm hoping, a gallon at least. I want a full gallon. That's my whole idea here. So you might have noticed that this is not really that different from a lot of the other brews that we do, but I try to show you different techniques in making things each time. Like, we're not using the glass fermenter this time, we're using a plastic bucket, and we're doing it in such a way that you can use the glass fermenter for secondary. And we're not making the tea, we're dry hopping the tea. Little things like that. It's good to have a bunch of different tools at your disposal because each one has its advantages and disadvantages. Like, the advantage of using the bucket is I can make my batch anywhere between 1 and 2 gallons and get a full gallon out of it. And I can mix it like this in a regular glass fermenter with the little lid. There's no way that was going to happen. As you can see, I couldn't mix it all in. We got a lot of clumps of stuff there. We got some grape skins floating around, but it's okay. We're going to take a reading on this as best we can. I'm just going to go all the way down to the bottom and see what I get. Okay, maybe that was a bad idea. Let's just go down the side. Oh, that's better. It's chunky. I have her hang on to it because I'm looking at this going, that color, just, it looks very light. So I'm a little worried that maybe we don't have enough sugars in here. I would be wrong. It came out at 1.100. I have no issues with that whatsoever. I mean, I could add a little bit more honey maybe, or we can try back sweetening afterwards because this might go dry. It might go close to dry. So let's see what happens. There's a lot going on in here. I'm afraid to upset that balance too much more.
Can you take a picture of that, or is that gonna screw everything up?
How would it screw everything up?
I just want to remind you that you're gonna do that.
It's not going to screw anything up. I'm going to take a picture of that. The problem is, you're not seeing where the thing is.
Yeah.
So I'm still, you know, just sort of showing them. I mean, well, actually it's there, you can see it.
Because we have some yeast in the bottom of this, do you want to pour that in here and then pour this?
Yep. Okay, let's do it.
We can do that off camera if you want, so that way people aren't.
No, it's fine. So we still have a little bit of yeast left in the bottom of here. Waste not, want not. Just gonna do that, swirl it around. There we go. And then pour that right back in. No need to mix that up at this point. Now, 1.100. Not bad. That's somewhere around like the 13 to 15% range, like I said. This, I do need a lid and an airlock. A note about using plastic buckets and lids. This comes up a lot. They don't always seal real well. I know that mine don't. I'm okay with that. It doesn't really bother me. It's still working as an airlock. I don't think a bug's going to be able to get through the tiny, infinitesimally small little seal. I can hear it when I push it down that it's not fully sealed. And I'm okay with that. All it means is I don't get to watch the bubbles go, which is a little bit disappointing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change my life. I still know that I'm going to let this go for like a month, then I'm going to pull it out and show it to you on video. It doesn't change anything. If you really want to know if it's still going, pop it open a little bit, take a look. Do you see bubbles coming to the top? It's working. That's all you need to know. And I will do that in a couple of days just to make sure that I know it's actually working. However, like I said, this is going to go sit under the desk of fermentation for probably about 4 weeks. Somebody said, why so long for primary fermentation? Why not? I like to make sure it's done. I don't want to have to deal with it if it's not done. We have a lot going on. We make a lot of videos. So a month seems like a reasonable number. 2 to 3 weeks is pretty much all it really needs for fermentation. I give it another week to sometimes 2 weeks for that extra little bit of let it drop to the bottom so that when we rack it off, it's all nice and packed. It'll be halfway to clear by the time we rack it, and then it'll sit in secondary for a while. You know what? Time is your friend.
But if you're impatient and you want to rack it as soon as possible, do a gravity reading. Write that down. Wait a couple of days. Do another gravity reading. If those numbers have changed, it's still working. Let it continue.
Yeah.
If they haven't changed,
then it's probably fine to rack.
probably fine to go ahead.
Just so you know, if you do that, at most you're going to save yourself 2 weeks. At most. But this isn't the kind of thing you want to rush. If you want something really fast, go to the store, buy some mead. Drink that until this is ready. Trust me, you'll be much happier. Anyway, if you like this video, give us a like. If you like our channel and you want to see more of what we're doing, hit subscribe. And if you want to be in on all the goofy stuff that happens in our VIP channel through Patreon and Subscribestar, you can become a VIP and help out the channel and get to see more content that we don't show anywhere else.
If you like Brian's shirt, don't forget to check out citysteading.com where we have informational articles and our merchandise store.
You know what? I like this shirt that much. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.